Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Small Business Bootcamp. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services, and I'll be your host today. We're excited to have you with us. We've got a great session today, getting into some tech, and got a great presenter. But in order to get there, we want to go through a few slides real quick, and we're going to go through them pretty quick so we can spend the time talking about AI today. So with that, we like to start by recognizing all of our community partners. This is just a sample of the 130 plus community partners that have helped participate in the bootcamp series. We appreciate them, all of them, their time, their effort, and their expertise, and their willingness to be with us and each week. Those that are new to the Small Business Bootcamp, it is designed to help small businesses prepare, plan, and grow. And it is also a weekly webinar that we do every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. We also do an occasional special session. It is also a content library, and it is a series of workshops, and we'll touch on those right here. So the content library is an amazing resource. We've recorded all of our webinars over the last 3 years, and we place those recordings in the content library so that you can access them at any time. And we have over 250 webinars in that content library. And not only is it just the recording, we include the copy of the slide deck that you can download. So if there's some information on the slides that you want to use as reference, you can download that slide deck and have easier access to it as well. So that is a great resource. Some other resources that the ACA has to support small business is the Arizona Career Readiness Credential, the Arizona Innovation Challenge, Arizona MEP Manufacturing Extension Partnership, our Arizona State Trade Expansion Program, Arizona at Work, and last but not least, our Small Business Services. These are all great programs to support your small business as you're looking to grow and scale your business. And if you have any questions, you can definitely check out the webpage there or other programs, or you can reach out directly to me or my team, and we can try to get you some of those links and information on those programs. Additionally, we have our small business checklist, and this is an online interactive resource that helps new businesses and growing businesses identify the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal level. It's got a plethora of information. It has some really deep dives into different categories. But if you're also looking for a simpler, quicker response, we have a great little chat bot on there, a little virtual assistant we call Sally. State and local licensing information is what Sally stands for. And Sally's there to help guide you through some quicker responses to the detailed information we have in the checklist. So let's look at some of our upcoming sessions, and so later this evening, for all of our Spanish speakers out there, we have our monthly Spanish webinar bootcamp. You can join us for that at 6 p.m. this evening. And then on May 23rd, we have our small business and HR, reduce risk, save money and time. And then we have difficult conversations in business. Another item we don't have on here, but we'll post the information in the chat, is on May 24th, Wednesday, from 9 to 11 a.m. is a small business workshop on growth. It's in person, it's in partnership with the Phoenix Business Journal, Wells Fargo, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and others. So it's in person only. We are not recording that, but there are definitely some perks for attending. So check out that link when you get a chance. You can also find that information on our bootcamp webpage, where we have the upcoming boot camps and workshops. So with that, we want to jump into today's session, and we have our speaker, Rebecca Clyde. She's the co-founder and CEO of Botco.ai. And so Rebecca, I'm going to turn the time over to you. We also have Jacob Molina from Botco with us. They're going to tag team in this presentation. We're really excited about it. And many of you may have questions as we're going through this, so please place your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to those towards the end of the presentation. Hopefully, Rebecca and Jacob will answer those during the presentation, but you may have some at the end, and we'll be glad to get to those. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Rebecca, and it is all yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robert. I'm so always appreciative of the wonderful programming put on by the Arizona Commerce Authority. As a longtime Arizona small business owner, I have been able to benefit from so much of your content and programs I couldn't even begin. So thank you for doing that. And hopefully everybody today here can benefit from some of the information that we're going to share and exchange today. I am not alone, as Robert said. Jacob Molina, our product manager from Botco.ai, is here, and he's responsible for much of the work and the great things that we produce at Botco.ai. So we wouldn't be able to do this without him. So thank you, Jacob, for being here today with us. So just a quick rundown on our agenda today. Everybody's been talking about generative AI. You've probably heard of ChatGPT, which is why you're here, I would imagine. You might have even already started to utilize some of these tools. So we'll talk a little bit about the landscape. We're going to discuss specifically how, as businesses, we can use these applications to help us with customer engagement and to grow in terms of our marketing. So, I come from a growth marketing standpoint. I have spent my entire career helping businesses generate more revenue. That's everything that I have been focused on my entire career. And so I will talk a little bit about how we can see these tools being used to help you expand your business. We're also going to be talking about pitfalls and caveats. So it's new technology. We should be aware of some of the challenges and difficulties, as anything is often the case when it's new. So we can discuss those, and I'm happy to answer questions for that also. And then we'll just cover some quick takeaways. So let's start with some audience participation. I always love to have audience members share and just to get a sense of how people might have already started to use some of these tools. I believe we have a poll here. Which generative AI tools have you already started to use? And pick one, maybe the one that you use the most, if you have already started to use some of these tools. And of course, if you don't, that's fine. You can say you have not started. We won't reveal who answered what. So this is an anonymous survey just to give me a sense of how much experience you folks already have using generative AI.
Yeah, in March 2023, so this year, we polled 1,000 marketing professionals throughout the US. So it'd be interesting to compare the results and see like the differences, I guess, in which tools are more popular or less popular, I guess.
Exactly. So we'll see kind of what's trending in Arizona versus nationwide. Plus also a few months, that survey was done in March. And I think there might have been a little bit more time now for people to try some different things. All right, should we close the poll and see what the results are? All right, yeah, as expected, ChatGPT is the most popular, followed with a few folks that we have a smattering of people who've tried some of the other products. And then it looks like a lot have not started to use this. So this is actually a good topic for today. It looks like we'll be able to help some different people here. So as Jacob mentioned in our study that we did back in March, we saw that most of the most popular tool being used at the time was ChatGPT by about 55% of the respondents. And then next, we also saw a lot of usage of Copy.ai, Jasper, PepperType, Lenza, Dolly, which is some of these are more image-driven generative tools that will generate graphics, and then Midjourney as well. Great, thank you. All right, so going on to with regard to the next content, I wanted to, Robert had briefly mentioned Sally, the state and local licensing chatbot, and I'm curious, can we do Faith, is it possible to do a quick show of hands? Yeah, there we go, thank you. Has anybody had a chance to interact with Sally yet on the Small Business Checklist website? It'd be interesting to see if we have anybody here that has, of course. Oh, it doesn't let me vote otherwise. I use Sally all the time. Okay. All right. Let's see. Do we have anybody? Oh, we have a couple of people that have, one person that has taken advantage of Sally. So let me give you a quick glimpse into what Sally is all about. So if you go to the Arizona Commerce Authority website on the Small Business Checklist page, and you can just search Small Business Checklist, AZ Commerce, and it'll come up. Sally is this virtual assistant here who can answer questions about licensing requirements for various different cities, counties, different types of businesses. So if you're starting a construction business in Gilbert, Arizona, you can ask Sally what licensing requirements apply to you, and she will answer your question. So this is just one of the many ways that AI is already being used here by government agencies in the state of Arizona. All right, so let's go on to talking a little bit about the generative AI landscape. Most of you that were using generative AI have already dabbled in using ChatGPT, which is a fun product to use. I think it's become a national pastime now to try to trick it or to ask questions. You know, all of our kids are trying to get their papers written by ChatGPT. That's what my daughter is always asking me, Mom, when can Botco.ai write my papers? And I'm like, never. That's not the point. So we've think about these products as what we call the model layer. So, it's not necessarily, they still require supervision. Like you wouldn't produce something in ChatGPT and submit it without reviewing it. And we know that people who tried to do that, who had ChatGPT write their papers and then submitted them as is, actually had a lot of errors in their papers. So you still have to review the content. You've got to make sure that it makes sense, that it doesn't sound hokey. So I wouldn't recommend just using these tools out of the box. You kind of need that what I call like sanity check on it. And sometimes you even need to create an application on top of it that actually makes it useful. And so products like ours at Botco.ai, we really think of ourselves as more an application that sits on top of these generative AI services. And so that we can essentially clean out all the muck, have it make sense and have it be pointed toward a specific productive usage. So whether that's answering questions from customers, or maybe, we have seen some people using it for generation of like advertising content or designs, even music and audio, right? Whatever the use case is, you want to make sure that it's not just, you're not just using the raw product from one of these models, because it might not be kind of ready for prime time. So just something to think about as you're starting to use them. And so, at our company, what we've created are these domain-specific models that run alongside the large language models. And these models essentially can connect into content that already exists within an organization. So for example, with Sally at ACA, we have connected our Botco.ai service into all of the licensing data and requirements that the state of Arizona has, so that we can answer questions specifically, because it has to be correct. We can't give just a guess or maybe the right answer. It has to be the right answer. And so in that case, the model had to be trained, Sally had to be trained very specifically on Arizona licensing content and rules, not just these LLMs that are very kind of like universal in their nature. We also have the ability to query structured data. And what that means is that we might be able to access customer or appointment specific information, pricing information, things that might exist in a table format within your organization. And so the whole idea there is that if you're going to use generative AI to apply it to your business, you've got to make sure you're connecting it to the right content sources so that it provides accurate information. That's essentially the gist of how it needs to be used. So let me give you an example here. I have 3 kids, and so I'm a frequent flyer at all of the urgent care, my local urgent care. And I can tell you all the hours, which one is open till 10, which one is open 24 hours, which one has an x-ray machine, which one doesn't, which one does stitches. Because as raising 3 children, I'm a frequenter of these establishments. So one thing that we have done is supporting this industry is, I never like to wait. I hate having a sick kid with me in the urgent care waiting room. And so I always want to know like how much wait time there might be. And so one of the things that we can do in the chat is connect into dynamic systems where we can alert the customer of what the wait time might be. In this case, at this location at Silver Lake, there's only 1 patient in the queue. So that sounds like if I were to go to this urgent care, I would want to go to that one, versus maybe there might be one that's a little further away. But if it has a longer wait time, I don't want to go to that one. I'd rather drive further and wait less. That's kind of at least my personal preference. And so think about the chat services being able to connect dynamically to content about your products and services, so we can present maps, location, availability, wait times, inventory if you're selling products, so that your customer knows in real time if you're going to have the thing that they want or if they're going to have to wait to get it. You might also be able to answer questions about locations. You might want to be able to answer questions about services that are available at different locations that you have, because sometimes they're not all exactly the same. You know, I've seen some salons, for example, that might offer certain services, spa services at one place, but not at another, for example. And so one of the great ways that we can use this is think of it as a replacement to the phone call. What you might have had to always call to see, like, oh, do you have this? Or is there a long line for X or Y or Z? We can now answer those things in real time using these AI chat services. So that would save you from having to staff somebody who's just answering the phones all day long. And also we can automate these things. Think of it as like text messaging. So, okay, so Jacob, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about, you know, some of the ways that we can use generative AI for customer engagement.
Yeah, so I guess one of the ways that you can leverage generative AI is really to leverage your existing website, existing content that is on your website, whether that's blogs, articles, and I'll show an example in just a bit. But and using that information that is somewhere on your website, because by now you may have hundreds of pages on your website, and so it's not always easy for customers or for prospects that are coming to your website to get the answers they need. And so having you make your website conversational and be able to respond to users, to visitors instantly is a great way for them to remain engaged and find what they're looking for.
Yeah, and then we actually did a study back last year and found that consumers would prefer to ask exactly for what they're looking for from your website versus trying to point around and click. So, and I think here we had an example of how that could look.
Yeah, so this is a full page website. The idea of making the website just a fully conversational experience, and so exposing product features, booking a call, all within chat, and so the user could just use a conversational interface to ask whatever questions or find whatever product they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what we're going to get to show you is a demo of how we use it and how our customers have been using it. So as simple as just uploading files into our app, and then we'll generate question answer pairs, and then basically index the paragraphs, the content of your website, and your different documents. And that way we can, when a user asks a question, we can find the paragraph that is most likely to hold the answer, and be able to present a short chat format of that answer that's digestible, that the answer can the user can benefit from. So that's just the quick place to upload the documents, and then this is some examples of paragraphs that have been generated and questions that also have been generated to predict what people may be asking about your content. And now I guess we can go straight into the demo here.
Oh, whoops, we got ahead of us. So Thrive and Grow. So Robert, can you tell us a little bit about Thrive and Grow Gardens? I noticed they had registered for this webinar, and so we wanted to feature their product here today.
Yeah, so I met Thrive and Grow Gardens. They were up here for Venture Madness, and then they were also became the winners of the Moonshot Pioneer Pitch down in Tucson that we recently participated in. And they're a great product. They have some regenerative farming techniques that they use on their own products that they have on their own farms. And they're also launching some new products using some freeze drying and other regenerative farms to maximize the usefulness of the product and minimize loss. And so they got some really cool things going on. Great startup company. So yeah, if you get a chance, check them out. They're local to Arizona. So we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Jacob, do you want to talk about what we did here with their website?
Yeah, so basically what you're seeing here is an iframe of the website. So what we've done is we've built a demo chatbot. I built this like not even an hour ago. It's really quick to spin these up. So what I did is I basically went into their blog and found like 3 or 4 blogs that I thought were interesting. I'm no gardener by any means, so I didn't really know what to look for, but I took 4 blogs and I upload these, download them as each HTML files from the website and upload them into our app. And yeah, and I built this chatbot really quickly. And so I guess we could test it out and see what kind of answers we get for different content. So
well, you're not a gardener, but I am. I have 4 garden beds, 4 boxes at home. I grow 20 or 30 varieties at any point in time. So I am really interested in this company because I love what they're doing. So one thing that's really important when you're building a garden is to understand what is the right place to build it. So I would be really interested in the answer to this question. And again, I have not even tried this chatbot. Jacob just put it together right before this webinar. Okay, all right, that's a good answer. So we should check out the amount of sunlight it receives, the soil quality, very important. I've learned that bad soil, good soil, very important, and the size of the area and proximity to the water source. Excellent. We live in Arizona. We have a lot of sunshine, fortunately, at least in central Arizona. If you're in Flagstaff, that's a different story, but let's see, how can sunlight exposure be optimized? Let's see what it says. And again, this is all being generated through the content from their website and the blogs that Jacob had pointed to.
So what's happening basically is the documents that were uploaded now become the full context of the conversation. And so any question that are being asked to this chatbot specifically will basically query these documents and figure out which paragraph is most likely to have the answer, and then generate, based on the question, an answer that would be most appropriate using that paragraph. And like this happens all on the fly. So it's really interesting to see, because none of this is scripted. We don't really know what's going to come out. I guess Thrive and Grow is probably in the best position to figure out what the answer may look like.
Oh, what happened here? We got we stumped it with what question it looks like. Maybe the service. My Wi-Fi might be a little bit here. I'm going to reload it. But yeah, you can see we can keep going and asking questions. I like this about the sunlight and making sure that you know like where the southern and eastern sky is, as well as the shade. So here, at least in Phoenix, where I live, we have a lot of sun, and I put my garden beds in like the sunniest spot where they were going to get full sun most of the day, and that really worked. You want to get that, it looks like 6 hours of sunlight per day. And people sometimes think that the Arizona sun is too taxing on these plants, but actually that's not the case. I found the opposite to be true. All right, well, I don't know if we have the folks from Thrive and Grow here, but if not, I'll make sure they get a copy of this recording and they can test out the chatbot and tell us if it's answering the questions right. All right, should we go back to the content here?
Yeah, we can go back.
Okay. Okay, so we talked a little bit about creating engagement with our content in the chat experiences and being able to be a knowledgeable resource. And the reason why this is important is, you know, one of the things I have found the best way to generate business is trying to be helpful and educational. So all of us have an area of expertise. That's probably why you started your business, because you're an expert in that thing, right? Whether you're delivering a service like legal services or healthcare services or beauty services, or in the case of Thrive and Grow, they're, you know, helping people build gardens and have the best home garden they possibly can. And so they have a lot of areas of expertise, and they will generate more business if they can share that expertise with their customers and potential customers. And so that's why they have a blog. That's why they post to social media. That's probably why they have a lot of really great success. And so the more that you can make that content accessible to your customers, the better your experience will be for them. And the more you can help them buy more products and services from you, because they will trust you. And while many of us are using these chat experiences, we also, and to some extent, provide or generate some advertising. So, you know, sometimes we have customers that come to us and say, hey, I'm running an ad campaign, but I want to pay off that ad campaign with a really great chat experience. And so one of the things that we have done is created the ability to personalize the prompt and personalize the welcome message within the chat based on the ad that they might be coming from. So for example, if Ashley from ABC Urgent Care was coming to our website, she would be, and we were running an ad, and we had those referral codes from her, we would be able to create a prompt to generate a welcome message that speaks to her with personalization. Hi, Ashley, or versus hi, James, coming from a different kind of company. So those are some of the things that you can do that I love about generative AI is you can generate these personalized experiences. So people feel like, hey, you know me, you created content for me, and now you're welcoming me with my own name right within the welcome message. And so you can see even here, we've given you what those attributes could look like. First name, campaign, and then product interest area that they might have been coming through into your program with. So we have some customers in the senior living space that are using this capability. And so here's an example of one of their search ads that they're running for one of their independent living facilities. And in the past, they would have received a very generic welcome message that was just the same one for everyone, whether you or I land that welcome message from the ad, we would have seen the exact same thing. And you can see the conversation in the old days would have been exactly the same no matter who you were. But now with dynamically generated welcome messages that are personalized, we can now be more specific about the fact that we know you're coming from a Concord ad, not just any senior living ad. And we can even give you a specific offer that's unique to you to get you to engage. And what we have found is that when we introduce personalization into the chat on the website, we see a 14% increase in the click-through rate for those ads. So, we all know that spending money on advertising is expensive, and it's only getting more and more expensive. And so for all of us, it's really important that we understand how to generate more conversion, more click-throughs, and more productivity out of that same spend. And personalization is one way to do that. And that's an excellent way to use generative AI services. All right. Jacob, do you want to talk to us about sentiment?
Yeah, Gen AI is a great way to use to pair with sentiment analysis, so that we can adjust the conversation in real time, just as Rebecca was saying. So in this, for example, in this chart, you can basically see that the user is going through a verification of benefits at some behavioral health facility, and as they're filling in their information to verify their insurance coverage, they may ask a bunch of different questions. Maybe what are your locations, or I'm not sure you got my insurance information correct. And so based on the input that the user shared, we can detect or analyze if it's been a positive or negative sentiment, and basically dynamically respond to that user based on content that was provided by the customer. And so we may just adjust the tone of that response based on how we think the customer will be more likely to receive it. So if the person is happy, then we may have like a more friendly tone. But if they're unhappy, then we may try to figure out, like, maybe ask follow-up questions, or maybe I'm trying to understand or be more in tune with their emotions, and so that we can provide an answer that is slightly different, that they may respond to their needs at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that works really well is mirroring, right? So you always want to try to mirror the person's level of sentiment. So if they are frustrated, then you want to recognize that frustration and then, sit there with them and then offer something to help solve their problem. And that's one of the great things that we can do using these tools.
Yeah, and something that we're working really on the finish line here for our dashboard is to expose those different topics and sentiments in the dashboard, so you can know what people are talking, what are they asking about your brand, are they asking in a positive tone, negative tone, and be able to analyze that data and figure out, maybe I have issues about my location, like people are not finding the locations properly. In this example, where you could see that the negative part of it is stronger than the other topics. So these are just ways of exposing that data in a more visual and compelling way, so that you can take action on what people are saying online and try to mitigate it.
Yeah. So for example, you might have, if you're in the food industry, I've had this experience where maybe I had really good service at a restaurant, so I'm happy with the service, but maybe the food wasn't great, or there was something, or it wasn't super clean, so it's important to know not just were they happy or unhappy, but what was it that made them happy, and then what was it that made them unhappy. And so being able to know that nuance is really important so that you as a business owner can address it. You'll know, is this a product problem? Is it a service problem? Is it a location problem? And then you'll be much more able to solve the situation and make your customers happy. So these are some of the ways that you can use the data to be more intelligent. This is getting a little technical, but it's polarity. It's the idea of like how intense the feeling is. So if your customer is intensely happy or intensely upset, you might respond differently than if they were just slightly upset. So we're working on some things to allow for polarity scores as well within the sentiment. Ooh, this is my next favorite one. So in Arizona, I don't know if people realize that 40% of Arizonans speak a language other than English at home. And so that means that as people here, whether your business is in Arizona or really anywhere in the Southwest is very similar, you're going to have customers that have a preference in other languages. And so one of the things that we have worked really hard to do is to make sure that we're making our products and services available in languages other than English. And here in Arizona, being that we're a border state with Mexico, Spanish tends to be the most widely used non-English language. However, there's many others too. And so one of the things that we've really focused on is making that capable. So we're going to show you another example here. It looks like we're going to go back to our friends over at Thrive and Grow.
Yeah, I guess you can ask any of the same questions you asked in Spanish, or we can come up with new questions, but just think about them and write them in Spanish.
So I'm going to ask, I speak Spanish as well, so I'll ask about okay, I'm asking about how much light exposure should we get for our vegetable garden in Spanish. ¿Cuánta luz deberíamos proveer para un jardín de vegetales? Oh no, it didn't work, Jacob. Maybe my question wasn't very good.
Maybe, yeah. So what happens here is if the answer is not in the documents from which it was trained, then it's limited to that knowledge, right?
Okay.
So it won't go out in the web and just pick out information at random because it's like sourcing from those specific documents. But you can ask it something about, I guess, roots affecting.
Oh, and the other thing that I'm realizing is my keyboard doesn't have the Spanish language. What is it called? The accents. So my words are actually being typed incorrectly because I don't have like certain characters here. Okay, well, we'll have to try the Spanish one another time. We owe you that one to the team here. Okay, well, to give you an example though that is live here, I'll share with our group here. We have one of our customers is Healthy Partners in Florida. And they have, as you can imagine, most of their customers in the Spanish, from what I call the Latin American diaspora. So folks from Cuba and the Caribbean and Central America and South America tend to correspond with most of their patient population. And so they're using our product there to be able to answer questions about what services they offer in Spanish, and also things like, locations, maps, hours of operation. We're giving them information about pharmacy services, everything that they would need to interact with their healthcare provider. And for them, this was really important because they needed to be able to, of course, either staff people on the phone that could answer in Spanish, and that was getting really expensive. And so being able to do the chatbot service in Spanish was a huge relief to them from a staffing and from a 24/7 availability standpoint, because of course the chat is available to them all day, all night, all weekend, whenever they need it. So we'll get back to you guys on the Thrive and Grow. I want their chatbot to work in Spanish, but like I said, we only just put it together like right before this session today. All right, so I promised that I would share a couple of caveats with regard to the use of products like ChatGPT. So I know that all of us love utilizing these products. I know we love testing them, but one thing that you want to be careful with is make sure you're not giving away any of your IP when you're typing in the prompts or answering questions. I think there's a famous story that an executive from Samsung wanted a presentation created for his staff meeting, and he gave ChatGPT his entire strategic plan for 2020, the next 5 years, so that it would generate a presentation for him. Well, he wasn't thinking that he just gave away his company's secrets to OpenAI. So just be careful that you're not typing in all your plans and your intellectual property in there and giving it away. But a couple of other things, as we mentioned, is that it doesn't have, it's going to have some limited knowledge. It's going to be based just on what you have trained it on, or what's available on the internet. The free version, I think, only goes up until 2021. It might not have contextual understanding. There'll be, because it's already pulling from content that's been produced in the past. If that content was biased, then the content it'll produce will reinforce that bias. So you want to make sure to be careful with that. It might have some limitations, as we saw with language. You don't want to infringe on any copyright. So especially if you're using these generative AI products to generate songs, poetry, literature, you might be copying somebody's work without realizing it, since the source attribution isn't always terribly clear. So that you don't put yourself as a business into a situation where you've infringed on copyright. And very importantly, privacy, data security, all of these things you need to be mindful of when you're using these products like ChatGPT, especially if you're using the free version. These are all going to be considerations. So that's why, if you're going to use these generative products, consider using a system that allows you to control for these concepts, that allows you to control for privacy, for security, for content sourcing, because that's the only way that you'll be able to make sure that it's not either hallucinating or not infringing on any of those rights. Was there anything you were going to add here, Jacob?
No, I mean, you covered a lot of them.
Okay.
I guess some of these tools, I think, are working on additional privacy issues, like you can delete, but the conversations and so on. But yeah, I would just be super careful with what kind of information you're sharing. I think for anything like creative to generate like copy for your website, that kind of stuff is fine. But when you start involving HIPAA data or PHI data, like you just, those are the kind of things that you want to kind of stay away from, because these models don't have BAs in place for exchanging with you personally on these conversations. So
Got it. Thank you. All right. So what's next? Everybody always asks me what's going to happen in the next couple of years. Is this going to replace all of our jobs? That's a common question that we get. And so just to give you a sense of where we are with regard to the future. So when it comes to text this year, we're going to see that the fine tuning is going to get better and better, especially around specific areas of expertise, domain areas. And that's actually what we're working on here at Botco.ai. In 2025, right now, the first draft is usually kind of so-so. It's like, I would call it like a C paper. You can probably get like a C+ if you were to submit a paper right off of ChatGPT. So it's not bad. It's not going to flunk, but it's not going to get a straight A. However, by 2025, they predict that those first drafts will be better than the human average. And then by 2030, the final draft will be better than any professional writer. So I think in 10 years, our writing jobs might be changed dramatically. When it comes to writing code, and this is actually something that these services can use, they generate code as well. We've actually tried it at Botco.ai to see if we can use any of the code that it produces, and it's a little bit not great. So, we did it for fun. We tried to run it. It's basic, but it doesn't really work on a commercial level. Like you couldn't run a commercial product on code that's generated from these generative AIs. However, same thing, by 2030, we believe that the final product of these code generators will be better. And so I think of it as like the next coding language is going to be English. It's really going to be about being able to give the prompt the right information and being able to guide it appropriately. And then it'll generate the code that it needs in order to be commercially ready. So if you didn't go to engineering school to learn coding, that's okay. You might not need to learn how to actually write code, but you will need to understand how to direct code and how to instruct the code generators to produce the result that you're looking for. So it's more of like directing the work versus doing the work in that case. You'll have to know how to put all the pieces together as well. So hopefully don't fire all your engineers quite yet. You will need for that. And then when it comes to image generation, similar. Right now, the images that are being generated are okay, but they're not commercially viable yet. You can use them as mock-ups, you can use them for brainstorming, for fun, certainly, but I wouldn't use it yet for any kind of final product to submit to a client and get paid for. However, in the next 10 years, by 2030 or so, you should be able to have some pretty good images. So if you're an architect, you might even be using generative AI to create those mock-ups, those blueprints, and you'll probably be able to get quite a bit of assistance from these generative services. And then also the same in video gaming. So we're seeing the code generators being used also to produce video game files. And pretty soon, I imagine a world where we will all be able to create the video game that we want to play. Wouldn't that be awesome? Like, I'll create a video game for me and my family, and Jacob, you'll produce a video game for your kids. The Molina household video games. I think that's really a future that we can get excited about. So, and maybe we'll try to all become video game producers one day in 2030 or so. But that's kind of the future that we can look forward to. You'll still have to understand how to construct things, how to put things together. And most importantly, it doesn't change the fact that we still need to understand what customers want. As business owners, even if we can produce something from generative AI, if it's not what our customers want, it's not going to be purchased. They're not going to pay us for it. And so our job as business owners and as marketers is to continue to understand what it is, what problem we're solving for our customers, and make sure we're delivering a solution, a great solution to that problem, not just something cute and fun that we produced for the heck of it. So that will not change. And in a lot of ways, I like to say that we're going to become kind of more like DJs with these tools. So some quick takeaways here. From my standpoint, I really do believe that generative AI is changing the world. This is going to be as revolutionary, in my opinion, as the agricultural revolution was to humanity, as the industrial revolution was, as the computing revolution was. This is another type of revolution that we're just at the cusp of getting going on. So, we know that societies and folks that really embraced and learned how to use these new technologies were the ones that survived and thrived during those. So all of you here are the ones who are going to be surviving and thriving because you're learning how to use these tools. So you've already got a leg up on everyone else. There's a lot of great use cases that you can capitalize on right now. So, we showed you an example of how Thrive and Grow could already start using a generative AI capability to answer questions from customers who want to learn about becoming better gardeners. And certainly you could do the same for your own products and services. And then finally, just learn how to use these tools. Don't be afraid of them. Go try them out, test them out, have people on your teams work with them, encourage some creativity. This is a really exciting time to be trying these different things and start figuring out how your business can benefit, and learn how to orchestrate the usage of these tools. Because in many ways, it's like you becoming a DJ. You will have all these new tools at your disposal that you can use to produce a great experience. And I don't know about you, but I've been to shows where the same exact DJ set, like the same turntable, the same stage, one DJ was super boring and I was yawning the whole time and it wasn't exciting. And then the next one came on and it was awesome. So be the one that knows how to use these tools in such a way and combine them in such a way that you create awesome experiences for your customers. And then, finally, just don't go use these without understanding the limitations. Just be aware of some of the ways that you might have to be careful. Make sure you're mindful of data privacy. Make sure you're mindful of security. if you work in certain industries, like in the financial services sector or the healthcare sector, or any type of industry where there's regulation or compliance, just be mindful of what those regulations might be that you need to be aware of. Go reference Sally, ask Sally to help you if you need to understand any licensing specifics around your particular municipality or location. Sally is very helpful there too and could answer those questions. So with that, Jacob, I don't know if you have any other parting thoughts here before we sign off and move on to questions.
Yeah, I would just say, like, use as many of these tools as you can. There's so many free tools out there. I think just testing them out, figuring out which ones you prefer, maybe are improving your life most, whether that's work or personal. But just getting familiar with these tools, because these tools are becoming more and more relevant. And the same way, there's so many marketing tools right now. There's like almost like 10 new AI startups launching every day, and coming out with really new use cases or problems that they're solving. So I would encourage all of you to test out and get more familiar with all these tools, and not just the ChatGPT, but any other very specific use case tools.
Yep, thank you. All right, and we do have some good questions from the audience. So do you want me to get started with those?
Yeah, we can jump right into those. One thing I want to mention is just remember that just because you read it on the internet and you read it through a generative AI doesn't mean it's true. You know, it's like any software. It's got, it can be programmed with biases, whether it's intentionally or unintentional. And so it might be pulling from a data set that's flawed. So just because you read it on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Exactly. Yeah, all those things. Common sense still holds true. So that's why I always say, don't just turn in the paper that ChatGPT wrote. You're not going to get an A. You might even get flagged, because now that what teachers are doing is they're putting your paper into ChatGPT and asking if ChatGPT wrote the paper. And so the kids that tried to do that are now getting caught. So definitely not. Okay, so here we have a couple of questions I'll get to. So not sure if you're going to touch on it, but can you give us an idea of what the cost of implementing this type of tool? Several of my writing clients are CPA firms. Okay, several. Well, there's free tools you can certainly use. I'm not sure exactly what the use case is. This is Tammy. You asked that question. But I've seen some of the products go from free, but again, with free, you have to have a human in the loop to review. I wouldn't unleash a free product on your customers without review. But if you want to generate a product that's like no human in the loop, you're probably going to be paying, I see some of these services costing around $500 a month, upwards to a couple $1,000s a month, usually the price of a half a head count or something like that. Depending on how much you want it to accomplish. But again, it's a range, and it probably depends like how specific. Obviously, if you're generating an AI that's highly specialized in a particular industry, like one that understands accounting concepts and CPA, GAAP accounting rules, and can essentially do all of that for you, that might be a more specialized trained model that you're going to need versus maybe something free off the shelf like ChatGPT. Like I wouldn't trust ChatGPT to do my taxes quite yet necessarily. Okay, so then there's another question here. Or Jacob, is there anything you would add to that?
No, it's really, I have to understand like what the use case is specifically. But it seems like for writing clients, it seems like it would be like some of these tools like Botco.ai or Jasper, which generate copy pretty fast. So I think those may be more yeah.
All right. The other question is, are any providers focused on nonprofits? I mean, I know we have a lot of nonprofit customers that are using our product. So government agencies, we have organizations like the Homeless ID Project using our product. So yeah, I see a lot of nonprofits using generative AI. In fact, it's probably a great use case. So I would highly recommend it. So Doran, yes, I do see a lot of usage in the nonprofit sector. And I can, if you have any specific questions, by the way, here, I'll put my email address in the comments. Feel free to email me and I can point you to some examples. very specifically that I've seen used in the nonprofit sector. The ALS Association, the Ice Bucket Challenge people, they have a really awesome chatbot. So you can take a look at that one. I'm not sure what sector in the nonprofit world you're in, but would be happy to point you in the right direction there. Let's see, do bots like Sally record into specifics the IP address it came from? I think the question there is, do we know the IP address of the person who's chatting or who's engaging?
Yeah. So if this is all browser information, so it's part of your cookie. So all that information can be used to personalize the experience, whether that's language, browser, a device type, IP address. I mean, if you're masking the IP address with a VPN, it might not serve really well. But there's other ways to address, to assess maybe location based on the IP address, or if the user is okay with sharing latitude, longitude, that's maybe another way of leveraging a location-based attribute. But yes, these kind of information that are used for browser that could be used for web chat as well.
Okay. Thank you. Here, we have a couple more questions I'm looking at. One client of mine sent me a ChatGPT created article on a new regulation. It said several times a process needed to be done every 3 years. I found the three it noted was the section number, and it really needed to be annually, not every 3 years. Yeah, so there are errors. That's exactly what we were saying earlier. Jacob, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's the part that could be hallucinated. That term is commonly used when generative AI, because generative is just basically just predicting what the next letter or word should be for that to answer that question or to generate that content. So it may not place that word in the right place, and so it may just assume that this is very true, and it may seem very true because it's generated on the fly by something very intelligent, it seems, but this ChatGPT or any other tool. So yeah, so definitely be careful, because sometimes it will lack a bit of context and won't be able to answer I guess accurately.
Yeah,
and correct me if I'm wrong on that, Rebecca, but isn't ChatGPT, for example, their data stack 2 years old? So there could be regulations and different things that have happened since their data stack was loaded that could impact the validity of an answer.
Exactly. Yeah. So remember that it's outdated content. Remember that it is, like Jacob said, it's going to predict. It's like trying to piece together a bunch of stuff to generate an answer, but it's not fact checking the answer. And so you have to be the fact checker in that situation. So for example, in that case, Tammy, I would never use the result of a ChatGPT query without some kind of human in the loop or human review first, at least not yet. Because we do find that unless you've really guided it and you've figured out how to ask the prompt in such a way that you've removed all possibility of error, you're probably going to be, there's an 80% chance that it's right, but a 20% chance that it made up something along the way.
Yeah, and that's kind of why the future of large language models are basically fine-tuned models that are much smaller in size, but train on very specific tasks, so that they can do those very, very well, and not necessarily a bunch of different vague generalist tasks. And that's kind of what the future. I mean, that's a prediction itself, but the idea is that it's kind of, the AI is kind of moving in that direction. I mean, OpenAI released a statement that they won't go much larger in terms of models, and so it's diminished return now at this point, but to grow the models by billions and billions of parameters. So now there's different ways of getting better answers, and one of these answers is fine tuning the model based on and training it on more specific data.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And Robin made a good comment in the question, so I want to read what Robin, one of our listeners, shared. It says from Robin Simpson, not a question, it's just a tip. I work in marketing and I use AI more so to help me come up with campaign ideas or email subject lines or things like that. I rarely can even take those answers straight from ChatGPT, but I typically take their suggestions and modify it to fit my own needs. Suggest using it for creative ideas more than anything that needs to be correct.
Absolutely. That's a great comment. Thank you, Robin and Robert for pointing that out. Absolutely. It's a great starter. Think of it as like a starting point. I would definitely, I love it for creative usages. If I'm just trying to get some ideas to brainstorm, it's very useful for that. Absolutely. But you're right, you in a very different situation than trying to provide like a correct response in real time to somebody. All right, there's another one here. Tammy wants to know, how old is the data in Google's new AI Bard? And I'm not exactly sure. Jacob, do you know?
I think because Google's a search engine, they prioritize having it access in real time to their browser. I don't have access in Canada. They haven't released Bard yet, but from what I read, it's got access to the internet, similarly to Microsoft Bing version of ChatGPT as well. So yeah, so those browsers have access to tons of data. So yeah, they should be they have access in real time.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would be skeptical about Google, and this is just something my experience with them, is we all know that they compromised the value of search for advertising, right? So if you advertised, your search results would somehow magically be better than if you didn't advertise. So I do worry that they would end up also skewing their content and skewing their information in favor of advertisers. So just be mindful of that with Google. I mean, they've proven that that's what they do. So why would they not do that with Bard? Okay, so what about, is the Botco.ai app available for users to test and purchase? Yes, absolutely. We're a commercial product and we have lots of organizations using our product. We'd love to talk to you, Akbar. I can give you our email if you want to talk further. And we also are happy just to do like a bit of an educational consultation. If you're not ready to move forward with anything, that's totally fine. I really just want to help more people be familiar with what's possible, know what tools are available to them, so they can do a really great job kind of considering all the possibilities and be ready for the future. That's really my goal with this. There's another question here, if we have an affiliate program, and yeah, we'd be happy to talk to you, Giselle, if you'd like. I'll send you my email so that you can contact me if you want to talk more about that. And let's see, oh, did I miss a question? Did we have any other questions here? Oh, Tammy said, I just asked Bard. So it said, it was a long answer, but said, if you are referring to the data that I'm currently using, it's a combination of data that I've been trained on and data that I've collected from the web. The oldest data in my current data set is from a few days ago, but most of it is just from the past few hours. So sounds like it's very current. That's good. Awesome. And then I can't go without redeeming ourselves. We finally got the Spanish stuff to work. So let me, I just have to show how quickly we were able to fix it. There was a problem and we got it to work. So here you can see we asked a question about how to prepare the ground for roots and plants. And we got a really good answer in Spanish, which is correct. Los grandes trozos de corteza, la, la, la. I don't need to read it to you in Spanish, but if you speak Spanish, you'll see that it did give us the right answer. So we had to just do a little bit of real time bug fixing here while live on the show to get it to work. But the great thing is you can see that it's just in a matter of less than 45 or 30 minutes, we got it to work.
Yeah, what's interesting is how quick with the generative, you're able to put together some of the chat stuff. When we full disclosure that we use Botco for Sally, and they did a great job explaining how it all works in general. But when we were working on the chat bot originally, we still have lots of discussions on the information, the feedback from users that we get as part of it, to fine tune, because our answers have to be correct. You can't make sure that they're inaccurate. And that's why when you use Sally, sometimes you'll get something that says, please contact the ACA or reach out, fill out your information for a phone call, because we just don't have all the information in there in a way that can get it to you properly. But we're testing some of the generative features with a few things, and it's really exciting to see how that's coming along. So there may be a change in Sally in the future to be more generative. So yeah, something we're working on. But again, we were making sure that all the inputs and things are correct, so we can, because the value for us with our virtual assistants, virtual assistant, is making sure it is correct.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to give out wrong licensing information. That would be a
Yeah.
problem. Well, we've come to the end of our hour. I want to thank everyone for joining. Great questions. I know we could keep going and going, but I shared my email address if anybody wants to continue the discussion. This is my favorite topic in the world, so I'm happy to meet with you offline separately and continue answering any questions you might have. Thank you so much for joining us. And Robert, thank you for having us here at Botco.ai. We love working with the Arizona Commerce Authority.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Jacob, for being here with us. We want to thank all of our attendees for being here. We got a bunch drop off, but for all those that are still here, thank you. And we hope to see you on our next boot camp next Tuesday morning. Until then, have a great rest of your week and a great weekend.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.